In this video, I'll be showing you how to make a new basketball bracelet using the rainbow loom. So you can make it on either one or two looms. I'll be showing it on just one loom today. So you want to have your loom set up with the pins in a staggered position so they are not in line with one another. And you want to have the arrows facing towards you for this first part. For your colors, you will need black and orange for the basketball, and with one loom you will be able to fit 3 basketballs on. So in total you will need 12 black bands and 45 orange bands. And then for your background color, you can choose whichever color you would like. I have a dark blue, and you will need 90 bands for this part, plus you will need a few extra bands for an extension. We're going to begin by first putting the basketballs on the loom. So we're going to start with black, and on the left hand row, if you count up to the 3rd pin in from the end of the loom, that is where you want the first band to be. We're going to double this band, so you place it on your hook, twist, and put it back on. From here we're going to stretch across to the right hand row. It's going to be a tighter stretch because the band is doubled. And then we also want it to go around this center pin as well. So you want to pull that down so it makes a triangle shape. And then you want to take a second black band, and we're going to place this to the next pin up in the left hand row. And for this you're going to place one end on your hook and put the other end on that pin, and then what we're going to do is twist the hook around 3 complete times. So we have 1, 2, and then a third, and then what we're going to do is put the end of this band on the pin below here. And now we're going to go from here diagonally into that center row. We're going to place another band from the top. It's going to be a long stretch over this pin and down to this next row. So again, we're doing that same thing. We're going to twist this band, put it on the pin, and this time we're going to twist around 4 times. So you have 1, 2, 3, and 4, and it's going to have to go alongside of this center pin and come down and then place the end. It's a little bit tough to do. And then finally we're going to move to the row on the right, and again we're placing a black band, leaving it on the hook and twisting it around 3 full times. So that's 2 and 3, and it's going to move to this pin below. And now you want to push all of this down. And then finally we want this black triangle band to come off. So from the end here we're going to pull it out and over that pin. And now we also want it to come off of these 2 pins. So you're going to pull out and over, and then for this upper one, out and over again. And then the part that's on your hook, we want to come to the other far side of this pin, just to try and keep it in place. And then it's time to start the orange part of the basketball. So for this, what we're going to do is we'll start on the left hand row on the 3rd pin in, and we're going to stretch all the way across diagonally and to the right. This band is going to be doubled, so you need to place it on your hook so that the 2 bands are formed, and stretch all the way across, leaving this pin in the middle. Push that down, and now in a clockwise direction around the circle we're going to move to the next pin Again, we're going to double the band and it's going to stretch diagonally all the way across to the right hand row. Putting that center pin in the middle of the bands. And then finally we want a band to stretch in that center row across the length of those pins. So again, you're doubling, you're putting it in the middle and stretching all the way across. And now you're going to push all of this down again. And now again we will start on this same pin on the left hand row, and this time we're going to just place bands to the very next pin over in a clockwise direction. So you're just going to work your way around the circle. You always want them to be as straight as possible and make sure they're going on the very top and they're not crossing over any bands that are already on the pins. And then at this point what we're going to do is remove the bottom layer of orange from all of the pins. So we'll be starting on the left hand side here. You can see you have this black band at the bottom. You're going to be leaving that alone until the last step. So you want these two orange bands to come off. That was the band that we doubled. So it is going to be tight. You want to pull it out and over the top into the middle. Just make sure that as you're doing that, that these two top orange bands do not come off. And now we're just going to work our way around in a clockwise direction, taking those two orange bands at the bottom off, always leaving the black alone. Now on this pin you're going to have to reach from the side, so what you want to do is get these two orange bands on your hook. Again, you're grabbing it from the side, pulling it out and over the top, making sure that these upper bands stay on. Flip to the other side here. Again, you're getting the two orange bands from the outside, pulling them over the top and into the middle. Go around to the next pin and repeat. And then finally back to the start here. You're getting those two lower orange bands to come over the top and into the center. And then you want to make sure that these bands that you took off are as tight as they can be against this center pin. And now we're going to place another layer of orange bands around in the same pattern. So you're going to start on this same pin and just work your way around. Make sure that the bands that we put on are pushed down on the pins so you have room to add these next bands. Again, just go around in a clockwise direction. And then once again we want to remove the bottom layer of orange, and again you're leaving the black alone. The next two orange bands are the ones we want to remove that are in the middle of the pin. So you're going to grab them both at once, pull out and over the top, again making sure that these upper orange bands stay on, and again. And here in the center is the tricky part. You have to take your hook. If you use the back of your hook and push back on these upper bands, you'll get a better view of these two orange bands on the pin, the lower ones. Get them on your hook, out and over the top, and then keep going around using the same technique, out from the outside and into the middle, and then again back to the start here. You have the two lower orange to go in the middle, and then once again take your hook and push all of this in towards the middle. You want it to be as snug as possible. And then finally what we're going to do is remove the black. So just work your way around, taking that single black band and pulling it over the top and into the middle. You'll have one band on each pin, and then you want to push all of this down to the very bottom, and then that is one basketball that is complete. So now in the center we're going to skip a row and move on to the next. This is going to be the outer edge of the next basketball. So from here you want to go diagonally up to that left hand row. That's where we're going to put the black band. And we're going to double this black band. It's going to go on this pin to the left, stretch all the way down to the right, and then also go over this middle pin that is closest to you. You want to make that triangle shape. And now we want to put our bands on that we twist. So on this left hand row, go to the next pin up, take your band, put one end on your hook and the other end over this pin. You're going to twist your hook around 3 complete times. And now you want this end to go on here and push it down. Now we're moving diagonally into the middle row. Again, this is going to be that long stretch down to this bottom edge of the basketball. And again, we want to twist this one around 4 times. So we have 1, 2, 3, and one more. And again, it's going to have to go to the side of that center pin. And you want to put this on and push down. And then finally, we're going diagonally to the right to this pin that's closest to you. And again, it's going on your hook, twisting 3 times, and then getting placed on the pin below and getting pushed down. And now we want this black triangle band to come off. So you're starting on the center pin, pulling it over, then to the pin on the right, pulling it over, and the pin on the left, and then getting the center to go behind this middle pin here. You want to push all of this down. And now we're going to add the orange bands that get doubled. Starting in the left hand row, you're going to double this band, and it's going to stretch diagonally across the middle and to the row on the right. Push that down. You want to double the second band, move to the next pin up, and stretch all the way across the middle again. And then finally move to the next pin in the center row, doubling the band, and then stretching all the way across that middle and to the next row down. Push all of this down. And now we're going to add the layer. That is just one band right after the next in a clockwise direction. So you'll have 6 bands for this layer. And you're always pushing down. And now we want to remove that bottom layer of orange. Again, you're leaving the black alone. You're getting the 2 orange. Again, this is a doubled band, so it's going to be tighter. Pull it out and over the top and work your way around in a clockwise direction, just removing the 2 bands at once from that lower orange row. Again, you want to make sure that the upper orange bands stay in place. Sometimes that can be tricky. Push all of this into the middle so it's nice and tight. And then push all of this down. And we have one more layer to go here. I'm always starting on this same pin just so it's easier, but it really doesn't matter which pin you start on for this. Some bracelets and charms it does matter, but this one, as long as you get all of these on, it doesn't matter which pin you start. But they do always have to be one right after the other. And now once again, we want that bottom orange layer to come off. I'm getting 2 bands at once on my hook and pulling it out and over the top and just going around. Again, this center pin is the toughest to grab, so if you use the back of your hook, push back on these upper bands, it will give you a clearer view. And from the side, you're grabbing the 2 bands. Make sure you don't get that black one in there. And pull it out and over the top. And just keep working. Sometimes it's a little tough to get them separated. And then back to the start here. And again, use your hook to push all of this in as tight as it will go. And now we want the black band to come off. This should be no problem. Make sure you get it off of all 6 pins. And then finally push all of this down to the bottom. And we have one more basketball to go. So again, in the center row, we're skipping the next pin and going on to the next. This is going to be our last basketball. So you want to go diagonally to the left, and this is going to be where the last black band will be placed. It's going to be doubled. It's going to stretch from the left-hand side all the way down to the right, and then also go over this center pin to make a triangle. And we have our bands that need to get twisted. So from here you're going to the next pin up, and we're twisting around 3 times and then putting it on here. Now we're moving diagonally to that middle pin. This time we're going around 4 complete turns of the hook. It's going aside of this center pin and going to this pin below. And then finally diagonally to the right here, the one that's closer to you, and it's going to go to the pin below. And this one's going around 3 times and getting placed on this next pin closest to you. And now we want the black band to come off, so we're going out and over the top, then to the right pin, out and over, the left pin, out and over, and then far side of this center pin. Push this all down. And now we have those doubled bands, again starting on the left-hand side, stretching over that middle pin. Again, double, move to that next pin up, and stretch across. And then to that center pin in a clockwise direction. It's being doubled and it's stretching all the way across that middle pin. Push all of this down. And now we start our single bands. On the left hand side, I'm going to begin and just keep going around. Now we want that bottom layer of orange to come off. So I'm starting on the left hand side, getting those 2 bands at once, pulling it out and over. It's always toughest to release that first doubled band because it is the tightest. Again, you're going from the side here and over the top. The more that you release, the looser it's going to get of these doubled bands, so it's going to be easier to pull them over the top. Push this into the middle, and you want to push all of this down. We have one more layer to add of the orange. And now again, we want that bottom layer of orange, 2 bands at once, out and over. Again, in the center here, pushing back so you can get a better view. Grabbing these 2 orange in the middle there. And then finally back to the start and push all of this in towards the middle. Now we want the bottom black band to come off of all of the pins. And now you're going to push this all down to the bottom. And that is it for the 3 basketballs. So now you're going to turn your loom around so that the arrows are facing away from you. And now we're going to put the background bands on. And for this part, I'm going to be using 2 bands at once. I would highly recommend that you do that. I have tried it with just 1 single band and it didn't work out very well. So you're going to be starting in the center row and going out to the left-hand row with both bands at once. And then I'm just going to continue up the left-hand side of the loom, always with 2 bands at one time, and always pushing it down to the bottom. And you're going to stop 1 short from the end of the loom, And the last two bands are going to go into that center row. You're going to go back to the beginning, arrows facing away from you. You're going to take two more bands at once and go out to that right hand row. Push these down. And then again, you're going to be working your way up the right hand row. Always with two bands at once. And as you're putting these on, you want to try and make them as straight as possible. And always pushing down. Again, you want to stop one short from the end of the loom and put the last two bands into that middle row. And then start back again. And this time we're going to do the center row. Again, doing the same thing. And you want to go all the way to the end of that row. And now you're going to turn your loom around so the arrows are facing towards you once again. And the only thing we have left to do is put the cap bands on. So on this very end pin in the center, you're going to put a doubled band. Just going to put it right on the top. And now for the rest of the way up the loom, what we're going to do is start in the left hand row, stretch it all the way across to the right, and also to the pin above. So it's going to make a triangle shape. You want to make sure that these bands that you just put on are pushed down so you have room to add this cap band. And we're just going to be making triangles all the way up the loom. And now you're going to go back to the start again, arrows still facing towards you, and you're ready to loop your bands. So we're going to be starting on this center pin, and you can see on the very top, the first two bands are the cap band, the next two bands are the bands that go in the center row, the next two bands go out to the left, and then the bottom two bands go out to the right. So we're going to be taking these off in order. So what you want to do is take the back of your hook, push back on the top two bands, grab the next two bands. You're going to have to hold this cap band in place with your thumb and move these two bands ahead. You want to go back down through, again put these top two bands behind your hook, grab the next two bands, and again hold this cap band in place, put those bands to the left, and then again go back down through, push back on the upper two bands, grab those last two bands, and move them out to the right. And so now what we're going to do is just to work our way up the left side of the loom. And so on this first pin, there are going to be 4 bands on top that you have to push back on. You want to get these bottom 2 bands to come out and move ahead. And now on all of these pins, you have that cap band that you want to make sure that you're putting your hook down through the very center. So that cap band is behind your hook. That's very important. Now we have the top 2 bands to come out and move up. And now there's 2 more bands, the 2 orange bands. So again, you're going down through the middle, getting the 2 orange, and moving them forward. The same thing for this next pin. You're pushing back on that cap band. You're getting the 2 blue bands, go back down through, and get the 2 orange. And now again you're going back down through, pushing back, and we have just the 2 blue. And then the same thing on this next pin. And now it's going to start the basketball bands again. So you have the 4 bands to get off. So you're going to do the top 2 blue and going back down for the orange. Same thing here. You want all 4 bands to come off the bottom. And now here it's in between the basketballs, so you only have the 2 blue. And then here's the last basketball. So you have all 4 bands you want to move ahead. And then again, you have the 2 blue, and then the orange. And then finally you have the 2 blue that are going to move out and into that middle pin. And you want to push this down on that center pin because it gets very full. You're going to go back to the start. And now we're going to work our way up the right side of the loom, doing that same pattern. So you're going through the middle. Now you have those 4 bands again to push back on. Get the 2 blue to come out and move up. Now on these basketball pins you have 4 bands again. Make sure they both move ahead and then go back for the orange. And the same thing again. Now in between basketballs we have just the blue, only 2 bands. And now at the next basketball you have all 4. So technically you could move all 4 bands at once, but I always like to separate them because trying to do all 4 at once puts a lot of stress on your hook, and also there's a chance that one of them could slip off and you would have to probably start your whole bracelet over again. And nobody likes to do that. Again, we have all 4 bands. This is our last basketball. And then finally, 2 blue bands to move out and into the middle. And then it's back to the start. And now the only thing we have left to do is to loop this center row. So we already did the first one, so you're going down through here. You have the 2 blue, and then go back down through for the orange. Now in this center row in the middle of the basketball, you only have the 2 blue to get. They might be a little hard to do, and make sure that your hook is not grabbing any orange. Move that ahead. And now this pin here is going to be the trickiest one to do, the top pin of each of the basketballs. So you're reaching down in and you are grabbing the top 2 blue. That part's easy. Now the tricky thing here is you need to get these 2 orange bands to move ahead. but they are not on the front side of this pin where your hook goes in. They're actually wrapped around the back side of the pin. So what you need to do in order to grab them is to reach down in, push your hook out to the side of these blue bands. If you can see my hook here, it's reaching out to the side. It's grabbing these two orange and pulling them out through, releasing them from that pin, and then they just need to move ahead to this next pin up. So the way that the band is going over this pin, you can either put it on the one side and straddle it, or put the bands on the side of the pin. So either way is fine. And now again, we're moving up to this next pin. We have just the blue. And now that's going to keep this in place here. That blue we just looped is going to hold this orange band. And now on to the next here. You have the blue and then the orange. In the middle here, you're just getting the two blue. Make sure you don't get caught up on any orange. And now we have this tricky one again. You have the two blue, which are easy. And here we have this out to the side to do. So you're reaching down in, getting these blue bands. Make sure they're all above your hook. Now get the two orange, release them and move them forward. Again, you can just straddle this pin. Now it's the two blue, and now it's all four here. And now in the middle, it's just the two blue. And then at the end here, we have the tricky part. We have the two blue, and now you want to put your hook in underneath all the blue, out to the side, grabbing just these orange here at the bottom from the side, out and forward. And then you can straddle this pin with these bands. And that is it. And so normally I take the bracelet off from the top and just pull it off, but in this case I'm going to work from the bottom up because I don't want the basketballs to get bent out of shape. So I'm just going to start at this end here and carefully put my hook inside and release all of these. In the middle here, just be careful. You want to try and keep it as much in shape as possible. And then just keep working up here. And now I'm going to leave just some bands on the end pins here because I don't want it to come off by accident until I get these loose ends hooked. So I'm going to take my hook, go down through the middle, go through all the bands and push it out to the side. I'm going to take another band and I'm going to pull this up through. If you twist your hook, you have a better chance of not catching any bands along the way that you don't want hooked. And make sure that these two ends stay on your hook, and you want to carefully pull the rest of these off. They are going to be tight, so you just want to make sure that you're holding on to this end as you're pulling it off. And then here is what your bracelet looks like. So when you first take it off, you probably will have to play with the basketballs a little bit. You want the black to curve at the ends, go straight across the middle, and then this center one that crosses all of these bands, you want to try and look as much of a straight line as possible. It's actually 4 bands there, 2 on the top side and 2 underneath. But you want to try and make it look more like a single band. And you can also pull these a little bit and just try and have it look as round as possible. And move on to the next one and do the same thing. Just trying to work with it and to get it to look as much like a basketball as possible. And so that's all there is to it. Now you can see that this is relatively short, so you will have to add some extension bands. So in order to do this, just set this aside for now. You want to take your loom with the arrows facing away from you, and we're just going to work on the right hand row here. I'm going to place 4 bands, one right after the other. And now I'm just going to place these 2 loose ends on that pin and stretch it up just so I can reach inside here. And I'm going to just keep going in the center and pulling back. And now you want to put your hook in the middle and release. And then you want to get a clip or a hook here. And I have an S hook. I'm just going to put those 2 loose ends through there. And then I'm going to go to the other end. You should have a nice circle here in the middle. Put your hook through. Get another band. Pull it through and put it back on your hook. And then set this aside again. And you're going to put a few more bands on for the other side of the extension. Going to do 4 again. Again, put these 2 loose ends and stretch it out just so it's easier to grab in the center and pull back. Just working back here. And now reaching in and pulling this off. I'm going to take my clip and hook these other 2 bands. Just going to put it through here. And then here is your basketball bracelet. So if you have 2 looms, I would recommend putting them end to end and making the bracelet twice as long, because it does tend to be on the short side even with 2 looms. And I will show you what that looks like. Here is a bracelet that I made using 2 looms, and I used a teal color for the background. And even with that connected, you can see that you might even need to add a few extensions on that just to fit around your whole wrist. And so that is the basketball bracelet. Hopefully you won't find it too challenging, and you'll be able to follow the tutorial and yours will come out great. You can always leave me comments on YouTube and Facebook, or send me pictures of your creations to my Facebook page. You can also sign up for my YouTube channel so you can stay up to date on all of my latest tutorials. You can also find me on Pinterest and on Instagram.